Welcome into the Bucks on the Pond podcast, the Hoist the Colors podcast every Sunday night at 9 o'clock. As long as the Carolina Hurricanes aren't in the playoffs or there's a fantasy draft going on, we are here talking ECU baseball. That is the case this week. We're doing that. Stephen Igo here in a Seattle Mariners shirt, Jonathan Wagner here in an East Carolina shirt, and Scott Lorbatcher here in a Seattle Mariners shirt. We talk ECU baseball, but we're talking Mariners this week. How's it feel, Scott?
Feels great. Let's get this over.
Before we do that, I just want to play a quick highlight.
1-1 for Mooney. Center field. That's trouble. Fraley's going to score easily. Dela Cruz just flying to third. Did they get him? Yeah, they got him at third. So that's going to wipe out the run. Yes, indeed. And you see home plate umpire John Lipka had a great look at it. They said, yep, that run does not count.
Indeed, it does not count. Julio Rodriguez with an absolute cannon to throw out Ellie De La Cruz. Mariners sweep the Reds. Scott followed through on his bet. He's wearing a Mariners shirt. So is it just your classic Mariners shirt, or is there a jersey component?
It's a Griffey.
Figured so. I mean, can't go wrong there.
It's a solid 15 years old.
Well, hey, thanks to the Reds for kickstarting the Mariners season. They did lose earlier today, but that's their only loss of the week. And we all have a live bet on the over in the Mariners-Rockies game currently going on. A 6-2 in the bottom of the third. We have over 11 runs, so we're in a good spot. In Coors Field, hopefully those runs keep piling up. Wags, as a innocent bystander, how do you feel about the Mariners sweeping the Reds?
Good for them, you know. It doesn't really do me much, but
hey, yeah, Nats 2-3 against the Stros.
Yeah, the Nats are kind of playing well right now. Dodgers come to town tomorrow, so yeah, series coming up against the Mariners next month, and then the Reds, I think, the month after that again for the Nats. So my bets will be coming. Don't worry.
Golf Yoda says Scott needs to seek a gambling helpline between the mustache and the hoodie. He's due for a dub. Says the degenerate gambler, Golf Yoda. Yeah, you got to start winning some of these fun bets. I know you're winning. You send us all your wins that really count, but yes. When are you going to get one that counts here?
I don't know. The Reds did sweep the Angels today, so at least have that going for me. So I don't know. We got the Nats in like 2 months. That seems like a good time for us to get a win.
Yeah, we're all planning as of now to go to Mariners Nats in late May during Conference Championship Week. So maybe we'll do a live Bucks on the Pond podcast from Nationals Park. We'll keep you updated there. All right, let's talk East Carolina baseball. That's what the people are tuned in for. That's what the 121 bots and counting are tuned in for. Not for Seattle Mariners and Cincinnati Reds talk. But hey, we had to start there. All right, so ECU goes 4-0 and. Man, it was a grinder of a week. Carter Cunningham said it best after the game Saturday night after sweeping the doubleheader. Like, it was just a grind. Tuesday was a grind. The doubleheader was a grind. Friday, you had the rain delay. But ECU goes 4-0. Wags, your thoughts on the week?
Yeah, it was a grind. And Tuesday against William & Mary, I mean, literally that was a grind and a half. You know, and I couldn't watch it because it was on Flow, and I wasn't home at the beginning, so I didn't watch it. So I was following just through stat broadcast, and it still had that frustrating midweek tight game feel to it, even though I couldn't see it with my own eyes. But they found a way to win, and that's what good teams do, and especially this time of the year. And William & Mary, I don't think is a bad team, but, you know, they grinded through, and it took everyone pretty much. It took pretty much your entire bullpen, everyone that was available, I think, pitched in that game. Guys like Corey Costello, Parker Thomas came in late, and they got it done. And over the weekend, same thing. When the pitchers weren't throwing the ball well, the offense stepped up, and I think vice versa as well. Comebacks on both games on Saturday. So all around, it was a really impressive week. And this team, like we said before, they win a lot of tight games. They have to grind out a lot of those wins. And that's something that's going to be valuable in the postseason. So to see it now, even if you're playing against teams that might be a slight step down from what you'll face in the postseason, it is still encouraging to see.
Scott, your biggest takeaway or overall thoughts on the week?
Yeah, I just thought we grinded. And I thought, you saw Tuesday, the offense kind of take control, and the same thing on Saturday morning. And then I thought we saw some pretty good bullpen performances, in both games. Saturday, obviously Tuesday was less than ideal all the way around. It's not a game that I think Wags or I could watch just because I'm not paying Flow Sports any money for middle school level production. But going 4-0 this week was a big deal. You look at the games going around the country today, and you saw Virginia gave up 25 hits to Georgia Tech. You saw Duke give up 10 to Virginia Tech. There was just a lot of high-scoring games. And, I know a lot of us have been talked about our bullpen, but it's not a problem unique to us. I think that's one of my biggest takeaways for this week just in general. And, we find ways to win, and we win again next week. We're going to be in a very good position come host selection time.
No doubt, ECU continues to put itself in a good spot, and tweeted out thanks to Chip Welch that ECU, with the record it currently has, 31-8 through 39 games, the best start for ECU since 2004 when they were 33-6. So they're winning games, doing it against a pretty tough schedule. Not as tough as some of the top teams in the country, but still pretty tough. And they're overcoming some obstacles. So ECU still not playing the I would say the cleanest brand of baseball from 1990. But as Scott said, like you look around the scores at some of the games today, how many games are 12-11, 11-9, 10-9, 7-7, or a team was up 9-3 and blew the lead in the late innings. Like it goes on throughout the country, even the best of the best, the SEC, the ACC. So it's a common theme. ECU right there with all those teams, I think could hold their own head-to-head and will this postseason. All right, again, we're live on YouTube, Facebook, X, so drop your questions there. We'll get to them. Obviously, we let you guys guide this show, but, we have several comments on the Tuesday game, and usually we kind of gloss over the midweek game in some respects because we're so far removed. But, guys, we got to talk about it, and I know y'all didn't watch, but I did pay for the shitty Flow Sports stream. Excuse my language. But it allowed me to get a true feel for how bad the strike zone was. I don't want to say bad, but just ridiculously tight. What was it? Combined 44 walks or free passes. I can't remember the exact number off the top of my head. No, 44 left on base. A ton of walks, free passes. It was so frustrating to watch because the home plate umpire, let's say I'm the home plate umpire, the right side of the plate from his vantage point was like nothing on that side of the plate was a strike. So like anything in on righties, a touch in, or on the inner half of the plate was a strike. Of course, like ECU was trying to work low and away to a bunch of righties, and they couldn't get the call. And it just made for the longest, most frustrating game. But somehow ECU found a way. That kind of kickstarted Joey Barini's big week, as somebody said, the Joey Barini week. But did y'all listen to that game, or y'all following stat broadcast? How did y'all kind of digest it?
A little bit of both for me.
I tried to listen to it, but I think the stream was maxed out, so they couldn't have any more listen for a while. So I listened to it for about 10 minutes at the end, but for the most part, it was stat broadcast.
Yeah, and I listened to a little bit at the driving range and on the way home, and then I stat broadcasted probably 70% of it. But yeah, I mean, just can we talk about Cliff turning over a new leaf? Because I feel like if there was a week for him to have an ejection, it would have been this one. I mean, there was some questionable umpiring for the vast majority of this entire week, including yesterday. So shout out to Cliff. I think he's more zen now than he's ever been.
For him to survive 3 reviews in the top of the first inning of the series finale against Wichita State was a miracle in its own. I feel like just find a way to win that game, guys. And that's kind of the second time they have just won an ugly midweek game this year on the road. UNCW being the other. Like, it wasn't pretty. By the end of it, you're just ready for the game to end. But, I mean, you look back at it, UNCW is now creeping towards the top 40 in RPI. I know William and Mary ended up getting swept at College of Charleston's in a couple of tight games, so they had a tough week. But Charleston's good. They're on the bubble. They're starting to creep that way towards getting that large too, potentially. So I I think this, the CAA, whatever it's called now, is pretty good. And Wags, these wins go a long way. I don't know how many people remember William and Mary, but I think if you lose that game, it kind of sets the tone for the wrong way for the week.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the most encouraging part about it to me was who stepped up in those big moments. Not just the fact that guys stepped up, but who did it. And, I mean, you look at pitching staff, and Jaden Winter got the start, but Danny Beal, Jake Hunter, Wyatt Luncher-Chinkman, and Jackson DiLorenzo were all done by the end of the game. So you're relying on guys. Eric Ritchie comes in, and then Corey Costello comes in, and then Parker Thomas comes in, and Parker Thomas pitched well and ends up with the save. Eric Ritchie ends up with the win. So it's what we've been preaching about for weeks. Other guys need to step up, and while it might not be pretty at time, it was still a 14-13 game. You won the game because other guys that haven't been in those roles stepped up and got the job done. And offensively, it's the same thing. In the 13th, it was Dixon Williams that came through with an RBI single. It was Bristol Carter that came through with a 2-run homer. And so it took everyone. Literally, it took everyone. So, again, we've seen injuries this year. We saw injuries this weekend. So you need more than 9 guys in the lineup, and you need more than 3 starters and 2 bullpen guys to have success in college baseball. And that's only going to be more true in the postseason. So to see guys step up in roles that maybe not be used to and have success and find a way to win, even if it's not pretty, it's encouraging. Like I said earlier, that's what good teams do. So guys stepped up, and it was really nice to see. And again, William & Mary isn't a bad team. Wichita State isn't a terrible team. I think they're better than what their numbers show. So he grinded it out, and that's what this team does.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, you look at the teams ECU played this week went a combined 0-8. Obviously, ECU has a lot to do with that in both cases. But I think both are solid teams. This moving to the weekend series, this conference as a whole is just, I don't know, outside of ECU and UTSA, which are now tied for the top of the league standings at 11-4 with 4 series left to play, 12 games left to go. It's just kind of a bloodbath underneath. I don't really know what to expect. Rice ended up sweeping USF, right? So it's like on the road. So who expected that? But ECU sweeping Wichita State, we talked about it earlier this week. It makes such a difference in the standings. They pull even. And a lot of big heroes. Let's start with Friday night's game, Scott. And Trey Savage, man. I went down to the first row to shoot some photos, and it's just a different experience watching Trey that up close and personal because you get a feel for how lost the hitters are. I'm sure you can see it no matter where you're sitting or watching, but the dude is he's starting to approach, if not surpass, where Gavin Williams was his final year at ECU in terms of just being dominant. Like, just no chance if he's executing, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, just a complete pitcher with an ability to mix pitches and spot up and locate. And, 15 strikeouts on Friday had me feeling really good about my 20-plus strikeouts by Root and Savage. Bold prediction that did not come true. But, I mean, if you look around college baseball, there are very few guys that I would say are as good as Trey Savage or that I would rather have on the mound on a Friday night. Starting game 1 of a series or game 1 of a super regional. I mean, obviously Hagen Smith and a couple other guys are pretty high up there, but I mean, he's just a complete pitcher, and he's pitched his way into what I think is a very early draft pick and in the draft this summer. And I mean, he at this point I think is the best pitcher I've ever seen in the ECU uniform. And obviously there's Gavin and some of the other guys in the past, Jeff Hoffman, Seth Maness, guys that maybe came out of the pen and just could throw hard. But Trey Savage right now is as MOB ready as a pitcher has ever been in the ECU uniform.
Yeah, he mentioned that he didn't throw but like a few good splitters on Friday, and that has kind of been his best pitch. And so he's got 4 pitches, and he throws 97 miles an hour, tops out there. So, I mean, he's consistently 93, 95. He is just an absolute horse. And, if ECU, again, can get to a super regional setting, they just, I mean, good luck. They're going to be as tough as anybody to take out in that setting. from the offensive standpoint, of course, it ends up being a doubleheader on Saturday, which meant ECU needed to score a lot of runs. They did, and 11 in both games, correct? 11 unanswered in both games.
Yep.
Which is just remarkable. Down 7-0, Wags. What was going through your mind in game one of Saturday's doubleheader?
I was like, oh no, here we go again. And I mean, I was sitting there and I was working through the start of it. But to be honest, my mindset was, all right, let's get this crap over with. The Canes play at 5. I need to be focused there, stress-free, and stress-free was not the case. And yeah, they grinded it out. I mean, Zack Root was not good, I don't think, on Saturday. And I think that kind of set the tone from the start. Once he wasn't really himself, it was kind of like, oh man, if he's off, we got a doubleheader, and I think the bullpen's already a little thin just from Tuesday. It's like, God, where do we go from here? And what's going to happen in the second game? So it was just your mind starts racing, and it's like, if this spirals, if they lose this game, man, I don't know if they're going to win the second. So, man, it was definitely stress-free, but like I said earlier, the offense came through when it needed to, and like you said, 11 unanswered runs, and Wichita ended up getting one back in the 9th. But still, I mean, Zack Root came in. I think Jaden Winter pitched well, and that whole game, I think. Sorry, that was the second game. Actually, I'm looking at the wrong page. It was Danny Beal that came in, and I think Beal looked good. Danny Beal looked like Danny Beal again for I think the first time in a while, and he's had some good performances, but that was the first true Danny Beal performance I think we've seen in a while. And then Wyatt Luncher-Schenkman comes in and shuts it down, and man, that was a game, I'll tell you what. And again, it was the offense that came through the big inning in the 3rd. Wichita State comes through and puts up 7 runs in the 3rd, and then ECU comes back with 5 of their own. So again, responds when you need to, and then you kept adding on, running the 6th, 2 in the running the 4th, 2 in the 3 in the 5th. I can't count.
There was a lot going on Saturday.
I know. So another run on the 4th, 3 in the 5th, 2 in the 6th. You didn't add on after that in the 7th or 8th, but still, the offense responded when it needed to, and it was 1 through 9. There wasn't a single spot in the order this weekend for, I think, the first time all year where you're like, yeah, this is probably an out. And I think that was the difference.
The big swing that just changed the complete momentum was Will Coxon's home run. Like, obviously, the whole 2-out rally was huge because it was 2 out, nobody on, down 7-0. Place was pretty dead. Who else but Riley Johnson, gets on via walk. I think Cunningham singles, JC singles, and then Will Coxon bomb. And then, honestly, when he hit that, I'm like, all right, ECU's winning the game. You can't take a 7-0 lead and then give it that much momentum right back. So that was huge. And then Joey Barini, again, go-ahead home run Sunday or Saturday night. God, all these games are just running together. They set the 3rd game of the series. He hits the 3-run homer again. The place was dead. He ambushes the first pitch fastball, hits a 3-run bomb, and then ECU ends up, again, scoring 11 unanswered to sweep the series. So we've talked a lot about Joey Barini on the show, Scott, but he had himself quite a weekend.
Yeah, Joey Bats. He looked like Shaq again this week, and I'm glad. I'm really glad to see it. We've talked about how much we've needed offensive production from the bottom of our lineup. Not just Joey Barini, but Dixon Williams and Colby Wallace as well, and they gave it to us, especially on Saturday. Without those 3 guys, without that infield production that we're finally getting from someone other than Carter Cunningham. I don't think we win either one of the games on Saturday. So just huge moments for Joey Barini. And, I'm glad to see it. Hopefully this is a spark and we get the 300 hitter again that we saw last year. And, also, I don't know about you guys, but runners on 1st and 2nd, no outs, down 3, and he ambushes a first pitch fastball and hits it as far as I've seen a ball hit in a while.
The ball was yoked.
So, I mean, I think I had already looked down expecting a bunt and just to move the runners up, and then I heard the bat and I almost hurt my neck just looking up. But, I mean, it just, really glad to see it. And, I know we've talked about Barini and how we've needed production, but I don't think any of us have ever doubted his heart and his ability to play. And we saw a lot of heart all the way around the field this weekend. As Riley Johnson just on no shoulders out there in center field. Barini, he's heard the noise, I'm sure, and I'm happy for it. I hope that this is just a springboard.
Yeah, I mean, I see a lot of people running to the message board or even on the show, like saying like people were, and there are some that badmouth Barini or whatever, but like I don't think anybody's pulling against Joey Barini. They're just having a conversation on, hey, could we be more productive if we do this, this, and this? Or everybody wants Joey Barini to have success. I mean, nobody wants him to not have success, and he's gone out and done it. He's playing through an injury with his wrist. He's giving it his all. So, I mean, look, we're very happy for him. I did ask him after the game what he ate for breakfast. He said GK Cafe, which I feel like is a very Joey Barini answer, but hopefully he continues that. But yeah, man, he's always been able to hit the fastball when he's on it, and he crushed that. And, then an inning earlier, down 3-0, they had first and second, nobody out. They sack bunted JC. I think it was Dixon hits a line shot right at somebody, and it was an out, and then they ended up getting no runs. So next inning, I'm the same way, Scott. I was expecting bunt 100% there. He swung away and just destroyed it. So I don't know, Wags, what did you make of that sequence? And we criticize – probably not right word. We discuss Cliff's bunting a lot. And in that sequence, he decided not to, and it kind of sparked ECU's whole comeback.
Oh, I'll say criticize. I criticize it all the time. I don't care. but yeah, it was kind of reversal from what we usually see. JC was the guy putting down the bunt, and then Barini comes through. And to me, we've mentioned it before, but to me, there's a time and a place to bunt. There definitely is, but it does limit your ability to have big innings. And I think this weekend you needed big innings. So at that point, you let Joey Barini swing. You had him in on, and obviously it worked out, and you're really glad you did. But, yeah, it's one of those things. It's situational. But in the end, I think when you let guys hit and let them just have their game, I think we might see some different results than what we usually do. And I think that weekend that was on display. So, Cliff's going to make his calls. I'm going to criticize some of them. I think we all are. That's just the nature of following and being a fan of baseball. Baseball is that sport where there's so many things you can do every pitch. And he's going to make his calls. I don't have to like it, but, man, I liked it this weekend.
All right, so let's we got a lot of comments rolling in. We'll get into some of these as we continue to answer. All right, Zack Root, we're getting some questions on him. Are we allowed to start kind of worrying about Root a bit, not as sharp the last few starts? I think let me pull up the numbers here. I think Zack Root, while he definitely has not been as sharp lately as he was at the early part of the season, guys. So I do think he is hitting like a bit of a wall because this is the most he's ever pitched in a baseball season in his life. But I think he was a victim of some horrific luck on Saturday. 8 runs, 7 hits. There were a few plays not made behind him. There were like 2 infield singles that weren't hit very hard. And like next thing you know, a guy throws a bat at the 2-strike pitch, kind of like slaps it the other way for a grand slam. Now the other home run was well struck, but like it's not like teams are barreling up the ball consistently. But definitely the biggest thing I've noticed, guys, is the swings and misses are down. He had a run. So this was a strikeouts to begin the year. 7-7, 10-7, 8-8, 7-9. Then he struck out 4, walk 5 versus Charlotte, and then struck out 1, walk 1 in 5 innings against Wichita State. So what do you make of Zack Root at this point, Scott, and where it may be trending?
Yeah, I also noticed the strikeouts were down just for my bold prediction, and it going horribly awry. But no, I mean, I don't think he had a ball hit hard off of him the whole game. Even the home run was, it was wind dated, right? I don't think that goes out of the park on a winless day, and I think it's probably caught for an out on a day without wind. He had a little chopper that just was an infield single, and just bad luck, and it kind of piled up in a way that you don't typically see. But then he bounced back. He still gave us 5, and outside of the one really bad inning, he didn't give up a run. So it's hard to say that he didn't pitch you're not going to say he pitched great, but he didn't pitch horrible either outside of some really tough luck. And I felt like the zone was tight in a way that it's not always, especially in a doubleheader. And if you have a little bit wider of a strike zone, you're going to see more strikeouts. I thought he made some pitches, but like we said, he didn't miss a lot of bats. He got ground balls and they found holes. So, I'm not going to worry about him now. Memphis is a team that I think he should be able to go out there and dominate. And if he goes out there and gives up 5 and scatters like 7 hits and maybe only gives up a couple runs, I think that would be kind of worrisome as opposed if he goes out there and really dominates Memphis in the way that he should. So I'm still on a bit of a wait to see. And, it's halfway or a little more than halfway through the year. Teams have started to adjust. And now you got to start self-evaluating and adjusting to the adjustments. So it got some time to go forward. The teams that we have coming up aren't as good as the ones we played. So it's time to see Root to kind of reestablish himself for sure.
Yeah, being there, and there wasn't a radar gun on the broadcast this weekend, right?
No.
So his velo for the most part was normal, like 92, 94. It did dip a little bit late, but that typically is the case with him, like 91, 92 in the later innings. JPN 1212 says, I feel the same way. Kind of feel like he's dealing with the same issues Trey dealt with last year. Could use a week off before postseason. I mean, I think it would be beneficial to rest him, but like guys that you don't really – there's no real opportunity for that. I mean, you're in a conference championship race. You're at a point where you're really trying to play for a national seed potentially. So I don't know, Wags. What do you make of the Zack Root at this point? We have Golf Yoda who says he's a big game hunter. These past outings have bored him. What do you make of Root?
Yeah, I do think that's a good point. Root is a big game pitcher. He wants the ball in the key moments, and a Saturday against Wichita State might not exactly be that, but I mean, still, I think I was encouraged by how Root responded to that bad inning this weekend, and he gave up 7 in the third. He bounced back, faced a minimum in the fourth, and gave up 1 hit and worked around it in the fifth, and he got the win. 5 innings and threw 96 pitches. So he grinded through. It'd be so easy for a pitcher, especially a young pitcher like Zack Root, to have that bad inning, and it kind of messes with you, and you're done from there. But he came back out, and I liked the decision to bring him back out. At the time, maybe I was like, I don't know about this. But, looking at it now, I like it. Give him a chance to go back out there and get you through another inning. And that's what Cliff talks about all the time. It's just go close out this inning for us. And Root responded. So, yeah, I'm not going to say I'm necessarily worried, but I mean, I do think there are some, the strikeouts are down, and I do think he is tired. And if you're in a position down the stretch to where, say, you take the conference lead and you're facing an opponent that doesn't hit as well, then if you have that luxury, great. Or maybe if you're in a position to where if you don't do that, if he's pitching and you need your offense to come through, and maybe he gives you a 4 and you're up big, you're up by 7 runs or something, and maybe at that point you go to the bullpen a little early just to kind of keep his arm a little rested. He throws about 60 to 70 pitches as opposed to 90 to 100. So that's something you can try too. But yeah, it's just a thing with this depth in the bullpen. I don't know if that's a thing you exactly have the luxury to do right now with giving a whole week off, but if you can find a way to do it or at least work around it, I would definitely be a fan.
Yeah, I feel like, the only real series you could do it, and Kurt says the Rice series would be the series to rest Root. If you have the conference wrapped up, maybe you could do it, but I just don't know if that's going to happen. I mean, UTSA has got a pretty favorable schedule, as does ECU. So ECU would have to be up by more than 3 games going into that, or win it on Friday night. Conceivably, you could give him that week off because he would be throwing on a short rest. And then you could also maybe even bring him back for the first day of the conference tournament and then give him that whole week off going into the regional. That would give him extended rest twice before pitching in a regional. But a lot of it depends on how it lines up. I don't know, Scott, do you have any take on trying to get Root time off?
That's a good point about Rice. And, in the past, that last weekend, for some reason, we tend to kind of play a team that maybe doesn't have a meaningful game in there. And they're starting to rest guys for that first round of the conference tournament, which I believe, is it Tuesday or Thursday is the first round of the conference tournament?
I think it starts Tuesday. It's
so,
the same format as last.
we've definitely seen teams hold back a Friday guy or a Saturday guy for that game. And in theory, you could do that with Root if we have the conference tournament wrapped up. You save him for that first round game because we know how important that is. Because if you lose that game in order to get back to the championship, like we saw last year, it requires you winning just a ton of games to the point that I think is actually detrimental to your regional rank. So I think that first game is more important than anything. So maybe you do skip Root on Saturday, pitch him on Tuesday, and then if you are in position where you've won Tuesday and Friday to where you don't need him for that second game, maybe you hold him out there and then get him an extra day's worth of rest. I don't know. Maybe you can do that, but at the same time, are you really wanting to break his routine? You may want to hold him, keep pitching him on Saturday, and if Memphis were up 8-0 or 9-0, something like that, and he's at 50 pitches in the fourth inning, maybe go ahead and get him out. And you kept his routine, you kept that mindset. He's done his job. The bullpen should be able to carry you the rest of the way. So. There's a couple teams that I think that we play going forward that's a possibility with. Certainly Memphis, I think Rice as well. If you can get him, out of the game at 60, 70 pitches, I think that rest may be just as beneficial.
Definitely something to monitor going forward, and a lot of it just depends on how it all plays out. But it'll be interesting to see how the coaching staff tries to handle it. All right, we got a shout-out. Claunch Golf Yoda says, I was so proud of him. Sunday player of the game, Cameron Claunch. I would say Barini's up there too. Both those guys for sure. We get questions about Claunch not playing every single week. I about audibly cheered in the press box, which is a big no-no when he launched that home run, cashing in. Bold prediction of the week. I was kind of joking earlier in the week that I should just have gone with Cam Claunch will get an at-bat because he had not been getting any. I knew that he was likely going to play Tuesday because I knew Ryan McChrystal wouldn't play in that particular game. So, I was hedging my bet a little bit. Had some inside intel. I don't know if that disqualifies me, guys. But either way, it came down to the end. Cam Claunch extra base hit. He goes 4 for 5, launches that home run. I know we were all happy, Wax.
Yeah, for sure. And like I said earlier, you never know when an injury is going to happen. So even a guy like Cam Claunch, who hasn't played a whole lot this year, he's still the guy that if he's coming off the bench, whether he's starting in a game when he's stepping up or if he's coming off the bench late and pinch hitting for someone, I'm going to trust him more often than not. So it was so nice to see, especially after seeing him get even less opportunities than I think usual. And he came through and I think he had 4 hits in his start on Saturday in the second game, something like that, and 3 or 4. So, man, he did that. And, again, that homer was crushed. I mean, we talk about a Claunch launch. That was a serious Claunch launch. And, you look at guys, I mean, Bristol Carter left early in the second game. Riley Johnson has been dealing with stuff all year. He was shaking up a little bit. And Jacob Starling's obviously been out. And so, you never know when you need to step up. So having a guy like that you trust, whether it's defensive replacement in the 8th inning or 9th inning and coming in late, or pinch hitting with the bases loaded when you're down by 2 in the 9th with the game on the line, 2 outs, it's nice to have a guy like that. So it was nice to see. And, again, this lineup, you need depth. You need more than 9 guys. You need more than 10 guys. You probably need more than 11 guys. So it was really nice to see. And I think that's something that this week I think might come valuable. I think we might see a little more Cam Claunch after his big day.
All right, a couple of personnel things here. JP in 1212 says, what's the health on Bristol Carter, Riley Johnson? So Bristol, according to Cliff Godwin after yesterday's game, is fine. Should be okay. He said that part of the reason he made the move was because the starter struggled against right-handers and Claunch got in there, had success. And then Riley Johnson, he's just playing with a shoulder. 2 shoulders that just pop out when he basically swings too hard or dives. And I feel like we got to talk about Riley Johnson a lot more in depth. We'll do that in a second. Seatown Pirate says, why was Ryan McChrystal out at William & Mary? It was a disciplinary issue, 1-game deal, I'm told. So he was back in the lineup this weekend. And then Chaz Myers left the team. I checked on that, and Chaz, it's a combination of him being sick and having kind of a family deal. So he ended on, fine terms. It was kind of a, his decision, but also ECU understood it and respected it. So I'll leave it at that. All right, Riley Johnson, guys. This is probably getting too caught up in the moment. Adam says, is Riley the best center fielder ECU has ever had? Probably not, but he's playing like an All-American. I mean, you look at his on-base streak, 37 games now? His catches, Wags and Scott, the dude is just an absolute monster. I'll let both of y'all comment on Riley because it's been a lot of fun to watch. I never expected this from Riley Johnson, Scott, but he has been just phenomenal.
Yeah, he's certainly in the conversation defensively. I think Bryson Worrell is going to be tough to beat. And then, from when I was in school, Trent Whitehead was another excellent center fielder. But just the heart and soul of this team. And, to have the record we do and have fought through kind of the adversity injury-wise that this team has fought through, Starling's been in and out of the lineup. Yeah, I think Barini has had some nagging injuries as well. And then Riley Johnson just basically playing on heart and soul. And, I just can't speak highly enough of him. And he's quickly becoming, in that pantheon of, players that I will talk about for forever, as far as ECU players, that maybe aren't going to be big leaguers or aren't going to be guys that are household names forever at ECU, but he's certainly always going to be one of my favorites.
Wags, does anything Riley Johnson, does anything he do surprise you at this point? I don't know what's more impressive, on base skills, defense, the sneaky power he has. He's executing at an elite level right now.
No, coming into the season, if you told me that I'd be looking at the stat line right now that Riley Johnson has, I'd be very surprised just because I didn't think he'd be available. And again, like I've said before, I've dealt with shoulder injuries very similar to what he's dealing with. And I know that's not easy for me to just everyday life, just walk around without feeling like it's going to pop out. And he's playing college baseball at the highest level you possibly can. And he's doing it in all facets of the game. He's second on the team in average, 353. He's leading the team in walks. He has 32. Nobody else has 19 on the team. He has almost 20% of ECU's walks this season, 17 stolen bases, elite defensively. And he's fired up all the time, too. Even these midweek games, at William & Mary, I think last week against ODU, and Riley Johnson is out there flying around the bases. It was Elon. He was flying around the bases, hitting a leadoff triple and just firing up the crowd. He does everything, and he does everything at such a high level. And having a guy like that in your leadoff spot is so valuable. Carter Cunningham's kind of been the guy that's gotten all the attention this year in the lineup, and rightfully so. But what Riley Johnson is doing, especially considering what he's battling through to do it, I think he's the most impressive part. And I do – before this week, I don't know if I would have agreed with Riley Johnson's this team's, position player MVP, but right now, I think he has to be.
Johnny Robertson says Riley in the last 2 weeks, 9 games. He is batting .548 with 15 runs, 11 runs batted in, 10 walks, 2 doubles, 2 triples, 2 homers, and an on-base percentage of .659. Johnny also says the Pirates' leadoff batter has reached base safely in all 39 games and 83 times total. Riley 37 times, and Carter Cunningham the 2 games Riley missed. And Johnny Robertson also said earlier that ECU, I think, was the only team ranked at a certain point that went undefeated this week. I don't know how high.
Only current top 25 team that lost a game this week.
That's pretty impressive.
That did not lose a game this week. Sorry.
Pretty solid. McLean Anderson says Pat Watkins is the best center fielder in ECU history. He says he's the only ECU player. Well, he's not the only ECU player. I guess position player to be taken in the first round. He batted .445 as a junior with 19 home runs and 57 RBIs, 352 batting average. So, yeah, a lot of good center fielders, and Riley's up there. All right. Let's let's talk about – we got a lot of questions about when Jacob Starling returns. I don't have an update there. Don't know. He's still not 100%. But a lot of talk again about what do you do with Colby Wallace. All I can tell y'all is that we asked Cliff Godwin that last week, and he said something along the lines of, look, Jacob Starling's going to play second. Colby Wallace has been great, but Dixon Williams will go back to third, and we'll figure out the rest. So I took that as it'll kind of go back to how it was before the injury. You can't not play Starling. And Colby Wallace has been good. I think we'll see more mix and match. We've talked about maybe seeing Dixon play shortstop, but I don't know. Has anybody's thoughts changed on that, one way or the other, Scott?
I mean, if Barini keeps hitting the ball the way that he did this week, then I would have a hard time taking him out. And, there's still a DH spot. I know McChrystal has kind of held that down, but I don't think getting him some extra rest or getting Wilcox an extra rest, depending on who's catching, is the worst thing in the world. So I think you'll see a lot more of Colby Wallace. And, having an extra bat to pinch hit late in games, and now with Claunch and, whoever goes to the bench is, you're going to have left and right bats to come off the bench now. So I think that's another asset. So I do think Colby comes out. I think he is the future at third base for ECU. I think next year you'll see him at third and Dixon at second. Defensively, I think you'll see him late in games too. His arm is kind of a game changer over there. Some of the throws that he's made, and, he kind of takes his time, sets his feet, and just hums one over there in a way where, like any other, third baseman, I'm like, all right, get the ball out of your hands. But I think you'll see him still a lot in the lineup and in late game situations.
ECU has gone 10-2 with Jacob Starling out, and there's been but this team, guys, I mean, Wags, we all said it, and I think it was you, Scott, who picked Starling to hit 400 this year.
Yeah,
like,
good call.
I mean, I feel like it's for this team to get to the promised land, like they need Jacob Starling to be Jacob Starling, and I think he's one of the most clutch players on the team, Wags, and there's no way you hold him out if he's 100%.
Yeah, for sure. I think if Jacob Starling comes back, and his upside, I think, is probably higher than anybody else in this lineup. So I think for that reason, you're going to see him. And, I don't think he wasn't fantastic this season before he went down to the injury. But again, that's a guy that, he's been here, he's going to play, and he deserves to play. But man, it's a good problem to have. So Starling's going to play second. Doesn't mean he's going to play second every day. Maybe he gets a DH day, and then you go back to Dixon at second and Colby at third. But it does give you flexibility. And I think someone asked earlier, why was Luke Nowak in the lineup instead of Cam Claunch? But I don't know if this is the reason, but in my head, the only reason I tried to make sense of it is because then you can kind of pick your spot with Claunch when you want him to come in. And, we saw that. So maybe that's something with – you'll probably see Dixon play third against a right-handed pitcher, Colby play third against a left-handed pitcher. So maybe that's something that starts to play in. And if you're in a fifth inning matchup with a couple men on, and maybe Dixon Williams is up against a lefty who's really good against lefty hitters, maybe go ahead and pinch hit early, because then you have just as much confidence in Colby, and I think he's probably an upgrade defensively. So it's a good problem to have. Like Scott said, Colby's a future, and I think he's a darn bright future too. So yeah, it's a good problem to have. I don't think you can really go wrong, but if Joey Barini keeps hitting, he's going to keep playing. He's probably going to keep playing anyways. So yeah, you've got plenty of options. And again, just because Starling's coming back doesn't mean somebody else might not go down later on. So they'll pick their spots, and I think they'll find the right mix, but Starling's going to play.
All right, quick update on the Bucks on the Pond betting line. The Seattle Mariners, I almost said ECU, just hit a 2-run homer to move to 9 runs. The Rockies have 2. So at worst, guys, we're going even with the total, so we'll get our money back.
Shout out Cal City to not be named.
Yep. They just call him the Big Dumper.
I like it.
Better nickname.
It's also the nickname of the team in his last name.
Speaking of that city, AMAC's coming to town on Tuesday, and the NC State Wolfpack are rolling in. Somebody said, is NC State a quad one game? I think they are on the road, but this would not be one, correct?
Yeah, they're 29 in RPI right now, so they're just outside for a home game.
So what is it, 1 through 25?
It is 1 through 25.
So there's still a shot they could get there, but as of going into Tuesday, it will not be. So
Guy Smith, then it's a neutral site, and then it's 1 through like 40, so it'll be counted as
right. Yeah, what do y'all think, guys? Like, I'm surprised we haven't gotten more questions about NC State and ECU. Golf Yoda says, for as confident as I was that we were going to beat State in Raleigh, I feel like we're going to get punched in the mouth on Tuesday. Is that just because ECU punched them in the mouth? Like, what do y'all expect? I do feel like, once again, the start of this game, the first few innings is so crucial. Like, neither team has great pitching depth. You know, State loves to jump on teams early. ECU jumped on them last time. What do you think, Scott?
Yeah, when we played State in Raleigh the last time, they were on top of the sports world, at least college sports-wise, with their Final Four run. And now they're on kind of like top of the world for the ACC. They swept Clemson, and they at least won the series in Clemson. I don't remember if they swept or not. And then they take a series from UNC. They've got 2 top 12 series wins in the last 2 weeks. And, it's time for us to knock them down a peg again. So we did it the last time. We can do it again. And I do agree. I think whoever strikes first is going to be in a great position. This is also 2 teams that have struggled in midweeks and struggled with bullpen pitching. And these games tend to turn into just bullpen sessions. But also, NC State leads the country in walk-off wins. So luckily, this game is not in Raleigh, so they won't have an opportunity to do that. And yeah, I mean, they are playing much better than they were when we played them the first time. I think they are coming in with a lot of confidence based off their last 2 weekends. But I mean, it'll be a fun game. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think it'll be a game that is won in the teens and not 4-3 or anything like that. I think it could very well be a 12-10 type game.
NC State 4-9 on the road, 18-6 at home. And again, they did win the series at Clemson, but I don't think anything, I'm sure Clemson's a good atmosphere, but it's nothing like what State's going to be walking into on Tuesday. I don't know. Let's see. State did lose to Campbell last week at home, correct? In the midweek.
Yes. Yeah. And they lost to UNCW this week. Yep.
So they lost to ECU the week before that, and they canceled the game against UNCG the week before that.
They have not beat the shit out of them. 2 weeks before that.
They've not been good in the midweek. Is the thing. Now they do play Ball State this weekend. I don't know why, but I guess whatever. So they should. It wouldn't surprise me if they throw their top arms. But what do y'all think? First off, AMAC. What type of reception do you think AMAC gets, Wags?
He's going to get booed. I mean, thoughts on it, that's just a fact. I don't think there's opinion on it. He's going to get booed. And we heard it in Raleigh. So I think we're going to hear it in Greenville even more. And I also think he's going to hit a home run in his first at-bat. So I
see there's a lot of fear, guys, in the comments section about this game.
And I will say, I think, like Scott said, State was kind of reeling when we faced them in Raleigh, and they weren't playing very well. But they're a different team right now. They are playing well. But, yeah, midweek's a whole different animal. Just because you're playing well on the weekends, that really means nothing for the midweeks. But, yeah, it all depends. Like Igo said, how do you start? And who starts the game on the mound for ECU? And this is a bonus bold prediction. I think you're going to see Aaron Groller. Why not? He pitched well. And if he's available, I think you might see him. And it's probably all hands on deck. You had an extra day of rest, so I do think everyone will be available on the mound outside of Trey Abbott and Zack Root. So Cliff Godwin's going to throw everything that he can to win this game, and he should. And it's a big one. It's a going to be a great atmosphere. And I did see in the comments, this is the 1-year anniversary of JC's 3-homer game. So 3-homer game against State. We all know I predicted that to happen, and then we know what happened that time. So I'm going to spare you this week, JC. I'm going to avoid you from my bold prediction. Home game against State. I'm not going to do it again. I'm not going to do that to you. I promise.
Donnie Run Pass Kirkpatrick says, I am definitely going to boo him. He says, I was sitting right behind Wags at the State game and can confirm he did not boo. So you didn't boo AMAC?
No, I didn't. You should have said something. I had no idea we had a listener behind me. Me and Sam Anderson.
2 HTC legends. Here's my thing, guys. Look, I mean, ECU, and I'm not saying the game is not important to ECU, but I feel like winning at Raleigh, can I even say that name? In Raleigh, at NC State takes some pressure off ECU because, like, you already at least split the series. Yeah, you don't want to lose at home. And the other thing, too, ECU is elite at home, man. Like, they're 20-2 at home. Like, you got to come to Clark LeClaire and beat ECU at home. I don't care if it's midweek, weekend, whatever. You know, you're going to have to play your ass off or get lucky like Charlotte or Southeastern Louisiana, get a few, you know, cheap home runs, which State can do to beat ECU. So, I'm not going to say I feel overconfident in the game. I think State will play well, and I think AMAC wouldn't surprise me if he goes yard, but he also might strike out 3 times. That's just AMAC. So I'm intrigued by the game is how I would say it, guys. Greatly intrigued, and I'm ready for Tuesday night. Somebody else said that, you know, I don't feel like the pitchers are rested. I feel like ECU's pitchers haven't been rested since the season started. I mean, I don't know.
Get an extra day off.
Yeah, that too. So. Both staffs do, you know, because they play Thursday through Saturday. So I expect a good game. We'll see what happens. All right. Leslie says State was not reeling Wags. Last time they played, they won 6-7. So
guess my memory failed me.
You were too busy cheering AMAC to care.
My bad.
No worries, man. Hey, we talked for an hour. You're bound to make a mistake. Let's see. Between NC State, Duke, and Campbell, this game on Tuesday is the most excusable to lose, according to the selection committee.
I don't know that I would agree with
excusable
that.
To lose.
Let's say Duke right now is, you know, if you do any sort of looking into these teams, I think Duke would be the team that is probably the hardest team to beat. Duke's strength is their bullpen pitching, and that's kind of what midweek games come down to. I also think Duke overall is a better baseball team than the other 2 teams, and I would put Duke for sure ahead of NC State. I would probably go Duke, NC State, Campbell. At this point, Campbell, 1, no excuse losing to them because you've lost to them 4 times in a row by 4 combined runs. 2, they have a little more pride after this weekend, losing their series to Hofstra. So Campbell is not the Campbell that we played in February. I don't know if Grant Knipp is back yet or not, but, I mean, he was kind of carrying them for a while. So, for me, Duke is definitely the best team that we play going forward. State's probably the second best team. So, both of those games will be tough. We need to win at least one and preferably both.
He says that we need that Duke game for a tiebreaker to host. A split against NC State is not as bad. I just don't think the committee is going to put a lot of value in a single midweek game, but maybe I'm wrong.
Duke's also 25th in RPI now. I think Duke's host bid is in jeopardy on its own. I think NC State honestly has as good a chance as Duke does to host at this point.
The tiebreaker to host should be any ballpark. Jack Coombs Field or whatever it is should not be allowed to host.
Do you have a parking lot? Yes or no? No, can't host.
Do you have to take a piss beside Duke baseball players? Yes. All right, let's host the game somewhere else. All right, let's see here. That's a true experience. Yeah, we're at 579 viewers. The bots are heavy. Or maybe we're just the most popular ECU podcast known to man. I had something else I was going to comment on from the comments section, and I don't think this is it, but let's just go with it. Brandon Carr checking in with his weekly comments. I go, your hair looks extra blonde tonight. Dye, lighting, or camera? I think it looks about the same, but I do have some lights in here that 94.3 provided me, so maybe that has something to do with it. Scott, have you corrected Wag's name in your phone yet?
Yeah, I was almost through a whole nother week without this getting brought up, but it is corrected. For those that don't know, my brother is a Jonathan. Wags is a Jonathan. So when I type Jonathan in my phone, it automatically just goes that way. My brain is just wired. I've typed Jonathan for 36 years, so I'm sorry to Wags for having your name one letter off for entirely too long. Also, I never even noticed it. It pops up every time you text me. I just never even noticed it.
I prefer Jonathan.
Jonathan?
Jonathan.
I don't, because he gave us hell.
Yeah. The Mariners called up some dude named Jonathan. So I proposed to change Wags' name to that. Wags, Brandon Carr says, our Heels are not playing well in April. First home loss this year to some Chickens. He says, wear more blue to turn our bad luck around. Yeah, UNC has lost, 4 series now?
4 series.
Yeah, I think so.
How do you feel about this?
Fine with me. If it comes down to UNC and ECU for the last national top 8 seed, then I think it's starting to turn back towards ECU's favor. And before, I don't think it was. So they want to maybe lose one more. You'll get no complaints from me.
Yeah, I think UNC's positive series wins have faded, and their series losses that maybe didn't look as bad early in the year are looking a lot worse. Miami is almost UTSA bad at this point.
So McLean Anderson says, bring your own tomatoes. I'm assuming he's saying, let's please don't throw things at AMAC. I just want to say.
It's a comment before.
Before this happens, and I'm sure he's joking, but one thing I know is that of the 5,000 plus people there, all it takes is one dude, one idiot to actually throw something at AMAC. Like, let's I'm fine booing them, jeering them, whatever. That's part of the game, but let's don't do anything stupid, please.
Yeah. And this is a game and a series that we want to have, right? Like, it really helps us. So nothing to give them an excuse to not do it anymore. Because of all the places, that's one that would for sure use it against us.
No doubt. Just strike him out and cheer loudly after that. Or if he hits a home run, throw the ball back. That's fair.
Or throw a tomato instead of the ball back on the field.
That's
and then
fair.
Give the ball to a child.
That is also fair. All right. I don't see if I missed anything you really want to answer. Drop it here. We'll get to it. But let's do our weekly predictions. We're nearing the end of the show, and we always go round table, bowl predictions, and we always go weekly predictions. Did any of us have 4-0 last week?
I think I both did.
Yeah.
Look at y'all. That's right, because I went 3-1, so it would happen. That's how I'm going to spin it, at least. Cam Claunch went yard, cashing it in. Scott had the best odds to hit his 20K performance between Savage and Root after Friday night, and then Saturday happened. Wichita State, I think, was bound to not strike out 15 times again, so he did not reach that. And then Wags had the JC multi-homer week, which did not happen.
And he homered in his first at bat and didn't do it again.
He got, he's hitting the ball so many line drives now. It's and he's crushing the ball. He's just not getting it in the air a whole lot. But, I still feel like he is going to have a multi-homer week. I'm just not going to predict it. Moronic Monday says he saw Cam Claunch at Chipotle tonight, and that boy got a scoop of double meat. Cam Claunch and Justin Wilcoxon will be on Hoist the Colors tomorrow, so tune in 94.3 The Game, 12 noon. Cheap plug there. We got to talk about the rankings, guys. That's my fault. I always forget. That's the one thing I did want to bring up. So we'll table the predictions. Where does ECU fall into the rankings tomorrow, or rise into the rankings, I should say? Scott?
Yeah, I saw somebody also comment about Oregon State. I don't
know
if everyone noticed, but since the Oregon State fans came at me for questioning the mighty Pac-12 automatically getting a top 8, Oregon State is 0-4 with losses at Nevada and getting swept at Cal, whose RPI has now 50 but was like 90 before the game. So I think ECU easily jumps Oregon State. Oregon State should drop outside of the top 10, maybe down to 15 or so. I think 7 is where we go. I think we jump Florida State, who lost 2 out of 3 to Wake. It wouldn't surprise me to see Wake jump us, just based off previous iterations of the poll. And then the interesting one, I think, is Kentucky. How far do they fall? I don't think it's very far. This is their first series loss of the year. I was really hoping Duke would not come back and beat Virginia Tech today. One, it cost me $160 in a parlay, and then 2, I think we would have had a better chance if Kentucky only had to slide a couple spots back before there was a team that won. With that now, I think Kentucky will only fall down 1 or 2 spaces. So I think 7, and I think WAG is probably thinking along the same lines, right?
Yeah, I am. I think A&M and Arkansas are going to stay 1, 2. Tennessee is going to be 3. And I just had Tennessee and Kentucky swapping spots in my predictions. That's not a bad series loss at all. Kentucky's still 15-3 in the SEC. So I think they fall to 4. Clemson up a spot, Duke up a spot to 5 and 6, respectively. And then I have ECU at 7, Wake at 8. And then after that, it's kind of like, man, I have no idea. Vandy maybe up at 9. And then I think I had Oregon State at 10 just because I have no idea what's going to happen with them. They went 1-4 this week. They should fall probably a little further than that, but a lot of teams in that range also did, outside of Wake and Vandy, obviously, who I had jumping up. So the middle of the 10 to 15 range, it was kind of a rough week. Louisiana lost a good series to Coastal. I think Coastal jumps up high. I think Coastal's top 13 or so. I think I had Coastal at 12. So, yeah, there's a lot of change. But for ECU, I think they're 7. And I'll also have my updated field of 64 tomorrow early afternoon, hopefully. And ECU is going to be right there in the top 8 seed host. So stay tuned for that. I'll tweet it like always.
Check it out on 3 Sports for Wags' latest work. UVA lost 2 out of 3 to Georgia Tech. As Adam says, UNC, Josh says we got to jump UNC. UNC's already behind ECU, right? And at least in the D1 poll.
There is some confusion on UNC was above us as far as the field of 64 that D1 put out, but below us in the top 25 poll. So for this particular discussion, we were talking about top 25. As far as seeding goes, I think we clearly jump Oregon State, and I think UNC would be right there because they still have a higher RPI than us. But then they're 1 spot above us, and we have the head-to-head. So I think we jumped them there too. I think ECU right now is in as good a position as we've ever been for a top 8 seed at this point in the season. I know we've done it before thanks to just a really long win streak, but we were talking about it. A number 2 non-conference RPI carries a lot of weight in the eyes of the committee. And our RPIs itself is in top 10, top 8 right now. If we can maintain that, hold on to that non-conference RPI, which, there's 3 games left of that. That's Campbell, Duke, NC State. Win those 3, that non-conference RPI might be number 1. And if it's number 1 and we win the conference and the conference tournament, I think there's no way we're not a top 8 seed, and it could be more like 5 or 6, which is a huge difference.
Yeah, Josh Thomas says just got to keep winning, and that's the thing is got to keep winning, and because the problem with ECU with this league is like you lose any game in the conference, and it just hurts you so much in the RPI. And the committee, although having John Gilbert will help, they're always going to look for a reason not to have ECU in the top 8. They're going to want another SEC team or whatever. So you got to just leave no doubt is what it comes down to, which is easier said than done. All right, let's get into our weekly predictions. We'll continue to have more rankings and projections discussion as we get closer to May. But let's get into this. All right, so bold predictions, and again, 4-game week ahead. NC State, then at Memphis, which Memphis is a weird team. I definitely think they're capable of winning the game. So kind of a tricky weekend on the road. But let's go around the horn. We'll start with Wags, your weekly prediction and bowl prediction.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back-to-back weeks with 4-0. I just think home, hopefully good weather on Tuesday against State. I feel like our offense is gonna show up, and like I said earlier, I think you're gonna have pretty much everyone available out of the bullpen. So whoever you start, I feel pretty good. And it's going to be a tough game. I do think it's going to be a 12-10 type game instead of a 12-4. I think it's going to be close. Even if it's low scoring, I think it's going to be tight. So I'd like 4-0. Memphis is going to be – I think it's going to be a grind as well. And especially, we talked about Root having some struggles. I think he bounces back. But still, that's not going to be an easy series, especially on the road. So I'm going to go 4-0. And bowl prediction, I don't know if Starling returns this week. But I do think, whether it's Bristol being a little shaky, Riley is himself, but I think we're going to see 11 different guys, position players, start a game this week. So I think that might be, and so maybe you have McChrystal at DH and Wilcoxon catching instead of that normal rotation. I think maybe in one of the other games, McChrystal maybe is on the bench, maybe you face a lefty. And maybe Starling's back and he's at second, and you get that combination with Colby at DH and Dixon at third, or vice versa. And maybe a Cam Clark sneaks in there too. So I think you're going to get up to 11 position players starting a game this week.
And that counts DH.
Correct.
Okay.
Is that bold enough? 11.
I think.
I mean, we've seen 9 for the past ever since Starling got out. So
I think so because basically, it's just been McChrystal and Wilcoxon switching between DH and catcher.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm fine with that. Right. Scott, unless you disagree.
No, I think that's fair. I'll go 3-1 this week, though. I'm still a little worried about our road performance. And Memphis is a team that can score runs. I think they beat UTSA in a game earlier this year. So I'm not terrified of them, but I think if we don't play well, and especially coming off kind of an emotional weekend this weekend, and then Tuesday we'll obviously have, heightened emotions there. It kind of sets you up for a letdown at some point this next weekend. So I'll go 3-1, and bold prediction, I'll go 40 runs and 40 hits across these 4 games for the Pirates this week. 40-40 action.
I like that. 40 runs and 40 hits.
And I'm going to write it down so I don't text you guys tomorrow and go, what was my bold prediction?
I like that. I'm still going to forget as well. And you'll probably lose that sheet of paper.
100%.
Leighton says, what was our RPI in 22 at selection time? I don't know if either one of y'all wants to do some research while I read off this. All right, so Adam says 3-1 with a Saturday loss to Memphis for no other reason than it's baseball. Golf Yoda says, better hope we strike first against the Wolfpack. We can't keep having these comebacks. It takes too much of a toll on the mental. Josh Thomas says, great show, fellas. As always, I'm fired up for Tuesdays. He will be out in the jungle cooking up some smashed wolf burgers. Good stuff. Tommy says, my bold prediction, your Savage strikes out 27 on Friday. The jungle better load up the extra K signs. I wonder how many the jungle brings. I mean, because could be tough. And I think Wags – I thought Wags was frozen for a second, but I think he's just doing research. It was almost that time. John Baker says 4-0. Is that John David Baker?
Burn the boats.
JDB, that was my first thought, too.
Bo, what if we play bad, we lose, says Skull Pirate. And Golf Yoda says, if we go 40-40, we're going 4-0 this week. Contradictory prediction. What do you – your thoughts, Scott?
Yep. I mean, we could easily lose an 11-10 game, so you never know. Also, what if we score 18 runs on Friday versus Memphis, and then 4 runs?
That is very true. That would be a very ECU thing to do.
So, we've definitely done that before. I believe our RPI going into the tournament, by the way, was 8. So,
gotcha. Okay. Les Brooks says 3-1 Sunday loss. JPN 12-12 says 4-0. Ethan Norby strikes out 10. All right, I'm going to go 3-1 as well. I just think I do think ECU beats State and then wins 2 out of 3. I just think it's hard to sweep in this league on the road. Definitely doable, but for the reasons people mentioned, it's just hard to go sweep and go 4-0 every week. My bold prediction, I'm going to steal one from Wags that he used earlier this season, Dixon Williams. I think Dixon Williams will hit a home run on Tuesday against NC State, and that is my bold prediction for the week. He's hit 3 this year in 129 at-bats across, 21. He's had 3 in 143 plate appearances, if my math is correct. So I feel like that's pretty bold. So I'm going to go Dixon Williams home run on Tuesday against State from the ECU. It's not the same, I guess, because he's not playing third base. But maybe if Starlin returns that night, I'm still going Dixon Williams, though, because he had a good game against AMAC and the Wolfpack the first time. All right, anything else to add, guys, or we about done here?
Did you know that our RPI was 236 week 3 in 2022?
Is that for being swept by Bryant?
Yeah.
God.
And then didn't we lose? We were like 1-2 the next weekend, right? Like
we started off 1-5. Yeah.
Nationally ranked ECU Don says over under 1,000 fans at Memphis games.
There won't be 1,000 combined over the 3 games.
Yeah,
definitely under.
All right, Josh Thomas is calling for bowl prediction. Bristol goes yard, so we'll see if that happens. Would be awesome as well. All right, let's get out of here. Been a long show. Been a long weekend. We'll be back next Sunday night, 9 o'clock. Right, Wags? Do the Hurricanes any chance to have a home playoff game?
No, we're clear.
Okay.
And then the next weekend is the one I have to work that night, but we'll figure that out then.
He'll be live regardless. All right, we're heading out. We'll see you guys on Tuesday at the ballpark, and then we'll see you guys Sunday at 9 o'clock. This has been Bucks on the Pond, Hoist the Colors, the podcast. Talk to you next time.